Hey guys, what's going on? Thanks for coming here. Here's my tier list. We're going to be doing this for Joust as a whole, not in any particular setting, not limiting it to ranked or casual, but just the game mode in general and how each god I view them as performing. Wish I had data to give you, but unfortunately I do not have access to Smite dev features like Ajax or Pom-Pom will have. But we're just going to start up here at the top, work our way down, and give you an idea of where I feel they're performing in Joust as a god. So we're going to start first with Agni, and mages as a whole are overall really strong in Joust. You always need to have one, and preferably one that will have good lane clear and lane control. This is where Agni has a little bit of struggle in it. He struggles a little bit with his burst, but he is pretty good. I wouldn't say he's top tiered. He's definitely not going to be S. I have him somewhere around here in the A plus range. Mostly because he can be good, but he does struggle a little bit and requires a little bit of skill. I'm going to drop him off here in A. He could be an A plus, you know, and with someone who's really good with him, he can definitely stand out. But it's going to be a good player. It's not the god itself. Number 2, we're going to go here to Muzen Cobb. And AMC in Joust is good. He will taper off towards a high skill player cap. He is really good in casuals. I have him actually as an A+, only because he lacks real good bursty power, but he does have a lot of lane control with his 2 and his 3. But unfortunately, he is heavily dependent on his hives, so you have to be very aggressive with them, and it can be pretty hard early if you have a team that knows to look for them really well. We have Opwash here, and Opwash has a good lane control ult. He's got great burst with it, with his zombies, but they don't necessarily always land, and it requires a little bit of skill, but he can do a lot of damage, can definitely start pub stomping. I have him as being an A+. Amaterasu. Warriors generally as a whole struggle a little bit, but they're not terrible in Joust. They're not as bad as assassins. Amaterasu doesn't have a lot of tankiness, and tankiness is generally a little bit more favored in Joust. You want your mages to be bursty. You want them to also control the lane. Amaterasu does not have a lot of burst and doesn't have a lot of CC for team fights, which makes it a little bit hard because you're always going to get a 3v3 team fight happening. It's consistent. She's a little weak. I think she's a little underperforming, but she's still pretty good, especially if you get her 1v1 or you build her right. On her, coming in next as a hunter, he's not top tiered at all as well. He's going to struggle in the hands of most just because he doesn't have great burst damage. Now, the fact that his ult comes up, he can perform well, but he's not going to consistently perform well. There's a lot of things, and it takes a good player to make him perform well. I have him as being an A- here. I think he underperforms a little bit, but he does have a lot of upside potential in the right hands. Anubis. Low mobility. This is why he sucks in pretty much every other game mode, but he actually can and will perform well in Joust, provided that he's able to execute his ramp and actually get his damage off. There's a lot of other things that can go on, and he's pretty easy to counterplay, so he doesn't control Joust as well as his damage output can. I have him as actually being A, possibly A+, if you can get the right build in the right hands. If you're a little skilled, he's definitely going to overperform just from his damage. Alquang's similar to an assassin in his playstyle. Anytime you put an assassin in here, they're just going to underperform. They don't have the abilities to necessarily consistently perform well. Because of that, Alquang's going to drop down to the Bs. Pretty much, if they're not around here, this is me telling you, you probably should not pick him. D's obviously unviable. C's, you really should not touch them. B's means there's upside to them, but they're going to be very underconsistent. These are A's, A minus. We're talking could be good, has potential with their skills and their abilities and the way the god is, but not likely to perform. A means they're pretty well balanced for Joust. A plus means their skills and their abilities suit Joust a little bit better. And then anything above that, we're talking that they are just, there's a lot of power and their abilities are suited for this map. You have Aphrodite. Now, she has some power, ever somewhere around here. It's easy to counter heal. It's also easy to burst and focus her down. And then the rest of her, if she's not there, what she brings to the table isn't enough. She doesn't have real good burst damage. She relies a lot on a good damage front line. I have her actually A minus. I think if heals were stronger, she'd be A plus, but she's just not. Next up, Apollo. And as a hunter, he's got a lot of mobility, but Smite in its Joust map is a small map. So Joust is small. So Apollo having a lot of mobility in his 3 and his ult kind of is unnecessary. So right off the bat, his ult, too easy to telegraph in this game mode, and its mobility, which is its big value, is negated because you don't need it. There's where I have him. I don't think he's viable as a pick. I don't think as a god he has upside to him, even with your skill set. The only way he works is if the other team screws up. Don't pick him. Arachne, she's an assassin. Now, if you are going to pick an assassin, she's not terrible. She has a lot of lane control with her spiders, but it's still missing a lot. And assassins are good with mobility. They have a lot of movement speed, and they require a lot of jungle for ganking potential, and you know, jungle for feed so that they can farm. When they have to split it, assassins are always going to underperform. But as an assassin, I still think she's probably going to perform better than most of them in this. And I'm not saying assassins can't perform well in Joust. You're not helping yourself. You're giving yourself a struggle to succeed. Ares. Ares is one of those guardians where his ult is easily countered, easily negated, and you're rarely going to pick someone off. The only way he works is if he gets his ult off early twice. He's not getting it on the first one, because any team worth their weight's going to get Bs to start. Ares as a guardian is actually going to underperform. Even though you're forcing them into beads, a good team, a smart team, will be able to know what they have to do there. And he sucks with wave clear. So already out the bat, all you have to know how to counter him, buy beads, play under your fountain, or not under your fountain, under your tower, and eventually you will gain the levels on Ares, negate him, and that's it. There's no more to it. You can also counterpick gods whose ults cleanse them. That makes it a lot easier. There's plenty out there. Speaking of which, a nice counter to Ares is Artemis. But she's extremely late game. She's not bad in it because her ult really is game changing, and you can execute it to turn the game around at any given moment. She's a great god if you're trying to come back from behind, but overall she does have a little bit of struggle early with her mana and wave clear, so it makes it a little hard to get her off and rolling. But if you have the right front line with the right mage that can get you there, she eventually runs the later part of the game. I think she's pretty balanced in that, because it is a little hard to get there. I actually have her as an A tier. Here we go, RTO. She's been nerfed a lot, still going to overperform. I don't think she's the best guardian for Joust, but she is definitely one of the stronger guardians. I'm actually giving her an S minus. I think she's an overperformer just in general, in every game mode, just because she has a lot of control and abilities to her. With the narrowness of the Joust map, her line shot that does her personal lifesteal as well as slows and stuns the person. Going to be very effective here. Her 3 where she's got that AoE which does slows and cripples, and she's gonna do well. Her abilities lend pretty well here, and she can frontline and tank. All she needs is some people behind her who can do some damage, because she's gonna really distract. But the rest of her kit, she doesn't have too much. She's not gonna help. There's not a lot of utility. Well, no, gosh, she's got a little bit of everything. Let's just be honest. But there's others that could do better than her. Athena, not terrible. Again, her ult has a lot of mobility to it. With the Joust map being narrow, it's kind of negated. But overall, she performs okay. I actually have her as an A tier, only because I think Guardians, for the most part, are going to be around here. A minus. They're not. None are really going to go below here. And A minus is pretty much where you're going to see your Guardians, mages, and most hunters. If they drop below here, it's because their kit's just not suited for it. Well, Willish, again, she's actually probably a better assassin here because you can combo her with gods like Bacchus, Hebwaha, Vulcan, gods that do knockups, and then she can be really annoying hanging out in random parts of the jungle and getting kill secures. Still an assassin, and you're giving yourself that ability, that chance that the other team is able to figure out and counter you, and your skill set and your god itself is not really suited to the game mode. I still think she's probably the best assassin for this game mode, but you should probably still avoid it. Gonna put her at B just because I'm really trying to make sure that you guys know that I'm not saying, again, assassins can't perform well. They're just really going to struggle in this game mode. But she's probably one of the better ones if you are going to pick one. But please don't. Please don't if you're ever in a game with me. Bacchus. Bacchus is the Joust Guardian. I have him as S. He is first. He is one of your top 3 picks if he's on the board for you to run Joust. He gets in, breaks the team out, knocks him around, has a stun, and overall does a lot of damage and noise, and can really take control of the Joust lane. Bakasura, there is nothing he brings to the table in Joust. You should avoid him. He's got a good leap to get into places, but if you pick him as assassin in Joust, I don't know what you're doing. He needs something. He's overall right now just a general weak god in pretty much every mode. Bastet, again, not really bringing too much. The nice thing to her is that she can at least jump into the fight and get out safely, which a lot of the gods can't do. Probably because of that, I put her right around here with the other top performing assassins. Please don't pick her. Bellona as a warrior, better than Amaterasu. I can't even say Amaterasu. I'd say she's pretty well even. You can go one of either way, or a good player can use her really well, but her abilities aren't going to control the game. But she has some pretty good ones that do work for Joust. You know, with her 3, with the weight, her 3, her 4, her ult. And then even her line shot as well. I mean, all her abilities really do kind of work pretty well in Joust, but she doesn't have a lot of CC, so she can't control the enemy team too well, which you kind of want. Now, if you like doing damage and you want CC, Cabrakan right here, he's pretty good. I don't think he's top tiered, but I think he, as a Guardian, has some pretty good skills for this match, for Joust. He's going to bring you right around 8+. Camazotz. Again, up there with a Willish in terms of his abilities in Joust as an assassin. Either way, don't pick assassins. Gonna put him in B tier. Chronos. Little nerfed. Still pretty good. He, earlier in the year when he was still out, but as we're going in now, at the time of this video, I would have to put him at A+. When he had a 90-second cooldown, he was probably somewhere up here. he had a 90-second cooldown on his ult, he was somewhere up here, S minus, even potentially S plus for Joust. He just was too good. But now he's kind of come down. I think he's still pretty easy to play, but I don't think he's in the S tier. He's very, very high A plus as a hunter. Shock. One of the few warriors that I think makes perfect sense in this game mode. All his abilities work really well. I have him as an A plus for warrior. He's good. He's a solid warrior pick because he can just brawl the crap out of the enemy team. Works as a great tank, can put out a lot of damage and really just cause a little havoc on the enemy team. Changa, not bad. She's pretty annoying as overall, no matter where she is. In Joust, the benefit of her rabbit being able to run to fountain, not huge, and healing's a little weak, but she does control really well, really early. Tends to fall off a little bit late game, but overall really does work pretty well in Joust. She can be a solid pick if you're picking for the right reasons. Putting her at A+, that's where she kind of belongs. Chiron, much like my boy and her, a little underperforming. Not that he can't. His ult's pretty good for this because you don't have to worry too much about the lack of mobility you get into it. It does a lot of damage, so he can perform really well if he's used right. But as a whole, his kit just doesn't lend itself really too much to Joust, but not terrible. Kronos, ADC Mage. ADC Mages got huge advantages, but at the same time, you're losing a lot of bursty, wave clear, team fight ability by picking Kronos. So you have to make sure that if you go Hunter, you have someone that can do big AoE damage. Kronos' passive doesn't lend itself to Joust. They're usually shorter matches. I'm going to put him at the A. I think he's pretty well balanced here. Cuchulainn could be better. I'm sure we're probably missing something. I think he's potentially slightly overperforming. But overall, I haven't seen that or witnessed that. I want to put him A just to be conservative. But I think he has potential to really be up here as a warrior. And really, his abilities should lend itself to a lot of success in Joust. Cupid. Love this little guy. He does have some good abilities for Joust. Has a little bit of sustain. His ult is great for countering. Much like Artemis's ult is great for countering. But he has a little bit better damage output from his one. I don't think he's much better than Artemis, but he does work a little bit better because of the sustain and the fact that he's a little bit stronger early. Doesn't struggle for mana because you can drop your hearts, your teammate can pick it up, and you get a lot of mana back. I'm going to have him as A+. I think he's up here with AMC. I think slightly below Kern. Daji, pretty good ult for this, but the rest of her kit's pretty bad for Joust. It just doesn't lend itself too well. I'm actually she's gonna be the first C. Other than her ult, if you can get some stuff going off with that, I mean it's possible to pub stomp pretty much with any assassin in Joust, but you have to try to get ahead. And I think again, as an assassin, you're still limiting yourself. Erlang Shen, good mobility. Again, we're in a small map, so it's not great. As a warrior, I think he's a B pick. There's so many better options, and I think he's underperforming pretty well in Joust. Fafnir, good Guardian. He's got a lot of good damage. He's got a lot of movement, which is kind of nice because he can do leaps and stuns. And then can do a lot of damage with his ult as that dragon that really wrecks up the place and makes the other team really nervous when he's up in it. I think he's, again, close to your top 3. You know, in the right hands, he's crazy. But as a god, Bacchus as a god is going to perform more commonly good. Fafnir just has a little bit more upside than Bacchus, but because he requires a little bit more skill, I'm going to bring him down. I think he's S tier, S- tier. Fenrir. Ooh. Oh, lost it. Let's go back up here. He is, please avoid him. There is nothing he brings to the table in Joust. Much like Ares, all it takes is beads, and now he's useless. ADC carry Freya, another mage, kind of going to be the same thing with Kronos, but her... No, yeah. I mean, the nice thing is her ult's a little bit better in terms of damage output than... Obviously, Kronos doesn't have damage output in his ult, and the lack of mobility kind of lends itself better to Joust than a couple other modes. Pretty much anything, so she's probably going to perform her best in Joust. I think she's pretty even because they're just not... What she loses in wave clear, she has to be comboed with a wave clear friendly carry. So, like Freya, you could pick Freya with Kern. It's annoying, but he's got a little bit of good wave clear. You can pick him or her with Medusa. Gosh, who else? We'll figure it out. There's other wave clear gods. Ganesha. Good. Solid pick. Can't go wrong with him. I'm going to have him as S-, mostly because his ult is pretty toxic. He's got that slight stun with his 3 dash that does some damage. His ohm is kind of weak, but it's real easy to get the whole team in it when it's narrowed down to the Joust map. Geb, not bad. I think he's going to slightly underperform just because of his kit, and by that I mean his charge up rock roll that does that knock. Again, it's better in a larger map. It's going to do more damage, do more knock up if it's longer. So it's going to be harder to get that and get that more consistently in this game mode. Overall, he's not bad because the rest of his kit's pretty good. Geb shields are nice. He's got some good abilities that lend itself to controlling an area. There's still better picks. Athena's a little bit better. Again, Shock, Kabrakan, Ganesha, Fafnir, Bacchus. These are all gods that are going to control area better. Guan Yu, I'm going to put him down here for Joust. I think he's a B. You may be skilled with him. You may be able to play really well with him, but his ult really lends itself more to distance. His abilities lend itself to larger team fights, more team members. And he's going to struggle just a little bit. He could potentially be up an A in the right hands, but prefer not to pick him. Hades. This is a pub stomp god. Now, what I mean by that is he could get out of hand. He could. Could get out of hand real easily. But it's going to take coordination with your team, pulling off the right combo so that he can. I think he has the potential to be really high up there, but because he's not really... He's got to take a risk to clear a wave, got to take a risk to get to kill. He is going to underperform because he could be easily countered and counterplayed, not counterbuilt or anything. You can counterbuild, but he's going to be easily counterplayed. Hebois. In Joust, his kit's real good with his weight, with his carpet, his knockup. He's got some pretty good abilities for this. He's almost S- tier for me. He just really struggles a little bit in the wave clear, but he's great late game. If you can get to late game, you're in it, because at late game all you want is someone who can kill the other team, and his abilities hit a lot. But because it's a little hard early game to get the power built and farm, he's going to be A+. So he's overperforming slightly, but requires you to put a little bit of thought as you do it. Hell. What can I say? She's getting a little bit of nerfs as I'm making this. I still think that it's not going to affect her too much in Joust. She's going S- for me just because you need less skill to play her than a stance change god should. Now, whether or not someone performs well with her, It's one thing, but it's pretty easy too. And the nerfs that they are applying to her, it's not going to hurt her too much in Joust. She's still going to be overperforming in Joust too easily for people with less skill. Kind of like Chronos is, only she's going to be far more annoying in her role. She is going to keep her tanks and damage pretty well up there. Hercules, another great warrior pick. I have him up here almost like chalk. He's just good at getting in the fray. It's one of the things this god's good at, is just being there, taking hits, and being a beefy, meaty tank and knocking people around. He's got a little bit of skill to him, but he slightly overperforms just because he's so sustainy, so tanky, that he can be a good warrior choice. Hu Yi, pretty good with the ult. Joust has a lot of walls to bounce his shot off of. At the same time, he has a little bit of trouble in some farm, but his ult's great. I don't think he's S tier, but he's definitely up here at the A+ level. That's going to bring us to Hoonbots. Now, he's got potential. He's got some good abilities for wave clear and the team fights and disruption. He's not a bad choice. He's still an assassin, so he's still going to struggle. But he's got some upside to him, so he's up here in the B tier. Isis, a little weak. Definitely underperforms. Her ult can do some damage to people that don't know what they're doing. But she's not going to perform well. Just as a whole, I have her down here in B. I haven't seen anyone play well enough with her for me to think that she's got any potential. Same goes for Izanami. As a hunter, great wave clear, but she's got nothing. So early, those first few levels, which are kind of skipped because you start at 3, she's great, but she's underperforming as a hunter. You should probably avoid her as a whole. Yanis, not bad. Better in Conquest, better in Clash, better in Siege. He's going to be slightly underperforming just because he doesn't have a lot of burst. He requires a little bit of skill to play. If you can get his abilities to hit, he does a lot of damage, but his ult does more damage with distance, and now you're on a shorter map. Jingwei, again, short map. Her passive launches you out. She's not bad. She's got a lot of buffs to her that do well, but she's underperforming as a hunter. Still not as bad as those two. Kali, assassin, terrible wave clear. Very late gamey, mid-late gamey, annoying, can crush things. If you steamroll it right, she does well. Kepri. Oh, man. It's hard to say what he brings to the table in a Joust match. It's hard to say what he brings in anything other than a late game Conquest match where he can save, pull, and get a lot of team fights around him. And with only two characters' abilities to go off of his pool, it's going to be kind of hard for it to be viable. He underperforms in Joust. Let's just leave it at that. Kukulkan. Great wave clear, but not a lot of utility, not a lot of control of the enemy team. It requires you to get in close with his 1. But his ult's really good, his 3's really good, but he lives and dies by it. I think he's pretty balanced. He's maybe even slightly underperforming. Requires a person with a little bit more skill to do well with him. I'm going to put him in A, just because I think his 3 and his ult are easy in Joust, so it doesn't require a lot of skill to it. Kumbhakarna, lots and lots of CC. 4 days. Tons of it. Doesn't have a lot of damage output. Doesn't really need it if his team can. Now, he has the ability to really control the other team really well. So if you have 2 very bursty characters that can take advantage of his stuns, you can wipe a guy and almost guarantee that you get every kill. You get a kill once a spawn. Or I should say once a return to lane. but he doesn't do a lot of damage. Can't really help out too much, and for that, I think it requires a little bit of skill. But I'm gonna put him right in A because he can do well. Kuzumbo, kind of the same feeling with uh, Kumba. Does a little bit more damage. Has a little bit more area control, but not a lot of stuns or knocks or roots like Kumba does. But he's not a bad choice. There's just better ones out there. I'm going to put him at A tier. Loki is a pretty well performing Joust god just because he's got the decoy and his ult. If he can get it off on a squishy and clear them and secure them, a good player can get it going good. Still, please stop picking assassins. Don't pick an assassin if you want to win. Pick an assassin if you want to make it harder for yourself. Go for it. Medusa, my top pick as a ADC in Joust. Her ults controls a lot, counters tons and tons of Guardian ults, and keeps the enemy from advancing on and taking advantage of the Guardian ults, the Guardian CC, and will stun the ADC and the Mage on the other team, and maybe even allow you to exchange, at least exchange, but if not, just at least kill one. You ult, you dive, you pop your one, and if you have to, use your 3 as well. If you're able to get 2, you use your 3 first, then you pop your 1 and poke them down. She's a really good, strong hunter in Joust. I might even have her up here at S, but she's at least an S minus. Mercury, gonna say just avoid him. He's not terrible. Can dive through the tower to kill secure. Has some pretty good wave clear, but its potential, again, he doesn't have enough. Neja, the same thing. He's almost like Loki and Mercury combined. I would avoid him. Neith, not terrible, not great. Her global ult, not terrible because it still does damage, but its main advantage is being able to shoot from anywhere. She's going to slightly underperform, but she's not terrible. There's better, obviously, picks, but you can do fine with her. Nemesis, lots of mobility, so you're losing that. That's her main thing, is her mobility and damage. She could be fine, but she's going to underperform a lot as an assassin. Nike. Nike's actually not terrible. I'm going to put her at A just because I feel she stands out from this group and any of these a lot. I think she's a little bit better than Matsuratu. Nox, not bad on the wave clear, but it takes a little time to warm up. Great at isolating and killing a single person. Ult does a lot of damage, almost guaranteed to hit him down the lane. But she doesn't have burst on as a whole to really throw out there on the whole team. She's pretty balanced, but a little underperforming in Joust. But my God, I've seen a lot of people really do well with her in everything. Nuwa. In Joust, not bad, because you got that nice little funnel, and she's not terrible, but she's not great. If you have the right Guardian, the right Hunter combo, she's fine. But you want someone a little bit better than her. I do like her as a lazy pick. I think she's an A minus throughout every game mode, but isn't bad in every game mode if you build and play right. In the rest of the team comp is there. She has fine lane control, wave control, but lacks a lot of that burst damage. Odin, man, in Joust, he overperforms. Not on the ranked level because you can kind of counter him, but at the same time, if he gets lucky or two, he just overperforms as a warrior. Not because he's good or skill level, because it doesn't take a lot of skill to do well as Odin. I think he's an A plus. I don't think he's broken, but he's annoying as shit. And if he gets off, it's terrible. No one dives a tower better than Odin. Bacchus is close, but no one dives it better than Odin. I think it goes Odin, Bacchus, and then probably Shock in terms of tower dives. Let me see. Is there anyone else who's got a better tower dive? No, that's probably. I mean, yeah, that's probably the top three. Osiris, not bad. Uh, Pretty good with wave clear. Can brawl it out, but doesn't really work too well in the tanky aspect that you need in Joust. A little bit better as a mobile god. I'm gonna put him at A minus. He's gonna underperform. Moving on to Poseidon. Poseidon is a very easy god to play well in Joust. Everything about him lends himself to this game mode perfectly. He's got burst, he's got area control, area damage. Joust is his game mode. Does that mean he can win every game? No, because you actually have to have the rest of the team. Obviously, there's a lot of luck going on. But as a mage, in Joust, just in general, I think he overperforms just because of his kit. It makes it easier to do well as him and contribute to your team with less skill. He makes a poor player a little bit better just because he's easy to play. Raw, great wave clear, has the heals, has the nice snipes. He is pretty good in that sense. You need a little skill to make his snipes a little bit viable. I think he's an A+ with how good he plays. Raijin. There's where he belongs. Do we need to say any more? No, we don't. Rama. Big skill set here. Great for Clash, Siege, Conquest. But his value of his ult slightly lost in this game mode. Not terrible because you can still use it and poke them out. It's like getting a free tower dive without tower diving. But he's not gonna. It doesn't bring anything extra to the table in terms of its area control. I have him as A. I think he's pretty balanced for a Joust. Ratatasker used to be pretty good, only because his ult allows you to really do some damage. Ravana, not bad. Struggles a little bit in terms of wave clear, but he's pretty balanced here. Mostly because he can really box and tank and take teams on. Scylla, good with wave clear. Pretty good ult that lends itself really well to Joust because people can't run around as much. I've got nothing bad to say about her. She requires a little bit of skill with her abilities, so it's kind of hard to rate her too high. But she's really strong. I have her actually as an S-, only because of the amount of damage that she can put out and the fact that you're in a funnel in Joust. She just requires a little skill. Unlike Poseidon, who requires less skill, she requires a little bit more skill, does a little bit more damage to offset it. Two different people should be playing these gods. This is a skilled player, this is a less skilled player. It's up to you to figure out where you belong. Serket. Leave my assassins alone. Scotty, gonna underperform. Only because Calder used to, when he was immune, was fine. Just kind of okay wave clear, but it's easy to see Calder coming from a mile away. Unless she pulls off some ganks. It requires a little bit of power to, a little bit of skill to utilize it properly in Joust. There's just better picks. Sobek, he's not bad. Especially with his dive and pluck. Late game, that starts to become an insta-kill on a squishy. It's great for that. He trails off in terms of his damage and his tankiness. But if you have someone who can build, you build it right, you land a couple of those mid-early plucks that you're able to get some exchanges on some squishes, he can be pretty viable. I think as a Guardian, he's a little overperforming, but Guardians really do kind of run Joust. Next we have Soul. I love playing Soul, mostly because I love playing carry, and she kind of has a little bit of that while still having a lot of the bursty power that you want from a mage. Her kit lends itself okay to Joust. She has a little bit of sustain in her one. Lots of wave clear and burst damage in her 2. A nice escape with some damage output in her 3. But not terribly good 3. Her ult does a lot of damage, is pretty good for some kill secure, and kind of disrupting a team fight pretty well. I would have her at A+. She's kind of close to the S- tier. It requires you to be pretty patient, which most people can't be, and time your abilities properly, but she's still a pretty solid pick in Joust. Sun Wukong would be up here, but his nerf is hurting him coming up. I think he's going to move down. He's going to be pretty balanced in Joust. Still viable in other game modes because he's got a lot of mobility in his kit. Just not in Joust. Susanoo probably has the best ult for Joust as an assassin. Probably has a pretty good kit to fight in Joust. It's just you want a different composition out of your team from. Again, I will not put an assassin above B tier unless they actually perform decently in this mode. I'm going to put Susanoo on B tier, but he's probably the best assassin for this game mode. If you have to pick one, he's the one to pick. Sylvanas, not very good in this game mode. Not really good in most game modes. He's a pretty weak Guardian, slightly underbalanced. Probably could use a little bit more to something in his abilities to make him a little bit more viable. Like if they made his flowers either do a little bit more damage and gave a little bit more MP5 than it currently is, it would be viable, but it just doesn't do, he doesn't do enough. Terra, love Terra in Joust. Love Terra in Joust. She's up here. She does a lot of control, has the stuns, can get up there and box. It's great. She's a great pick for Joust. I just realized I've only put Bacchus up here. We're honest, well, let's see who do. Like here's more realistic. These are your top ones. No, yeah, she'll stay down here. I think it's other than her ult, Scylla's got an easy skill set. These are pretty well performing gods for this game mode. Thanatos, again, it'll be Morgan. If you can play her well, she will break every game, but requires so much skill level. I think because of that, she's balanced. Just because she can't do anything else. If she can't pull her ult off correctly, it doesn't matter. Thor, another assassin, B tier. Not bad with his wall and his 3, but gonna underperform. Thoth, late gamey, great for objective secure. There's just one problem. There's not a lot of objectives. He does slightly outperform a lot of the mages with wave clear. He's pretty good pick. I'm going to put him here at A+. Tyr. Tyr is really annoying in this matchup. I'd say he's probably the best warrior to pick if you feel like killing the other team. There's Shock, Hercules, Odin can do a lot, but you can kill a lot of people with Tyr and really mess them up, but requires a little bit more skill. I have him as A+. Ullr. I've had discussions with him before. If you've listened to the podcast, we've talked about how Ullr has such an upward skill cap that he is hard to play. And only in the right hands does he run Joust. He will run everything in the right hands. He's going to be an A. Vamana, going to be an A-. Just doesn't have a lot in terms of burstiness. Can tank pretty well. But overall doesn't bring a lot that works for the Joust map. Vulcan. What can I say? Not bad in Joust. But I can't quite say that he is so quintessential that you have to pick him. I think he overperforms really well in Joust, but you have to You have to be patient. You have to hope and hopefully get some good drops of your ults on tower. Xbalanque, just avoid him here. His kit does not lend itself to it. We got Jingjian. Probably not the best god to pick. Much like Ares, he's easily countered. And then you have what? Nothing. So we're going to say B, avoid him. Ymir. He is alright. His walls will do well. But at the same time, he's got a little bit of a struggle because he has to get in close to freeze you. And it's easy to telegraph that when that's coming. And it doesn't last long enough. I think he's pretty balanced, but I've seen and been a part of teams and been against teams that have a really strong Ymir player, so he's got a lot of upside. But is better as he tends to lend himself more as a pub stomper. Same thing here with Zeus. The nice thing is he's a low mobility god, and you don't need mobility in Joust. It's a little overvalued in Joust. So he works pretty well. I think he's balanced though, because it just doesn't. He doesn't have the burst. His ult does a lot of damage, but they have to hang out in it. They have to get away from it. So he's got a lot of control, but he just doesn't burst people down. Zhonghui, really going to struggle here. If you pick him in Joust, you're setting yourself up for hard times. He's just not going to perform well. And there you have it, folks. That's my Joust rank list. If I had to pick top 3 Guardians, I would say Bacchus, Fafnir, Ganesha. Top 3 mages to pick. You know, unless you're really good with either of these two, I'll always take a Poseidon. If you're pretty decent as a Syllabus or a Hell, bring it on. I don't need a Hell with a Terra, but that's fine. You know, maybe. Make sure you don't have too much heals because you need damage to go with her because she doesn't bring enough to the bursty damage, but she can do enough damage. Top 3 hunters to pick. Gonna say Medusa would be my first choice. AMC is gonna be my second choice for it. And then I'm on the fence. It's a toss-up between the C's here, Kernanos or Cupid. I think Kern brings a little bit more to the game mode in terms of his overall kit. He's got a lot more area effect that he can control Joust with. And that's it. It's going to do it. If you have any comments or questions that you want to ask, maybe you have some insight, maybe you can explain to me why I'm wrong, I'm always up for constructive criticism. Let's just remember, keep it clean, folks. Keep it clean. Thanks for watching.